Everybody, and welcome to the injection molding machine panel. We feel pretty privileged to have these guys with us this time, and we think this is probably the first time we've had the main guys from the injection molding machine companies all sat together. And because of that, we just thought, as they are really big competitors, we thought we'd better just put these out, right? Just in case anything happens later on. All right, so we're trying to pick some topical things out, which are obviously subjects that can provoke some thoughts, even controversy. We don't mind, and we're quite happy for you guys to join in and add a bit, aren't we? Yeah.
Yep.
So we're going to be directing the questions to each of the people. The panel will obviously discuss them. But if anybody out here wants to contribute, don't wait till the end. Put your hand up, I'll come over, and you can put your question to it. All right, because each of the 5 questions are cover different subjects.
No
all right.
heckling. No heckling.
Oh, heckling's allowed, don't worry. So, I think the first thing I'd like to talk about was UK investment. I think we all know that it's not always been fantastic over here. So, Nigel is the chair of the BPF Productivity Committee, which is quite involved with the investment levels and talking to the government and getting them to encourage the investment. But when we look at why is investment in the UK fallen behind, and has consistently fallen behind Europe for sure, but also in a lot of cases around the rest of the world. And we know that the UK competitors, they replace machines. Now we're talking obviously injection molding machines now. They are replacing them a lot faster rate than we are over here. And what we are also told is that the average age of their kids is less than ours. So what I wanted to ask first Nigel, because he is the chair, is the situation really that bad? And kind of what is the reality, and how do we kind of move through this?
Okay, thanks Carl, and I suppose the simple answer is yes, it probably is that bad, but I thought perhaps it might be helpful to give a bit of context behind that. So apologies, I've written some numbers down just so I don't forget them. So if you think about the polymer industry in the UK, we are the second largest employment sector for UK PLC, employing around 160,000 people. We've got nearly 6,000 companies involved in polymer in manufacturing and production, a 27 billion turnover, and we are a top 10 exporter, and 1/3 of what we produce as an industry goes abroad. However, we are always reminded that our productivity in the UK is lower than a lot of our competitors. For example, we're lower than Germany, France, the US and Italy. Although I certainly don't feel that we're less productive, and it certainly feels that we have busy days. So I wanted to try and kind of explore some of the stuff behind that. And I wanted to focus a little bit more maybe on injection molding, and Carl mentioned some of the replacement rate. So we've got about 1,000 molding companies in the UK, plus or minus, and there's an installed base of around 17,000 machines. And we know from our trade association statistics that they're replaced at about 700 machines a year. So at the current replacement rate, it'll take us 24 years to replace our fleet. And that's quite scary when you think that that's just to stand still. And while I'm not suggesting that with the normal of that 700 machines is worth probably about 80 million, I'm not suggesting for a minute we replace them all in one go. We do have to improve our competitiveness. So to try and explore some of the reasons behind that, we also have to appreciate that if you do the maths on those numbers, we're an industry of SMEs. So it's really important that we recognise that and we make sure that whatever we do fits with SMEs. So looking at the issues, I think the main ones are around education and skills. It's making sure that when we put new equipment into a facility, it replaces the old stuff, we get the most out of it. So we run it at the maximum production rates, and we need the education and skills and know-how to be able to do that. And that leads us to the problem of having nearly 15,000 people in the industry to be trained. So that's another challenge that we have to think of. Also government funding. If I compare UK funding to European, the European budget for new investment is about 1 trillion. Poland's 58 billion, Italy 69 billion, and we sit at around 26. So again, it's making sure that we as an industry can bring that to government. I think they're quite busy this morning though, from what I understand, so maybe that might be more difficult. And then the last couple of points really is around automation. We are 24th in the list of countries for automation deployment. And if you look at the countries which are up there, they are the US, they're Germany, they're France, they are those higher performing and more productive countries. So we also have to think about how do we deploy and how do we automate more. And then of course the last point is about digitalisation. That's an important element, and we're going to be talking about that in a second. Digitalisation is another way of improving our productivity and output. So sadly don't have any real answers, and hopefully we can stimulate some discussion, but those are kind of the main points.
I've got one point on that actually, because you were talking to me and saying that France at the moment are giving free installations of Industry 4 into how can they do that? I mean, even when we're in the EU, I didn't think they were supposed to do that kind of thing. Now we're not even doing it, and we're not even in there anymore. So if that's happening, why is our government not doing that with our manufacturers then?
I think that France in particular have had a massive investment program. So they've electrified their machines, they've modernised their machine fleets, and it will make them more competitive. And we are definitely lagging behind. So the case is, how do we signpost those SMEs where there's funding available? How do we encourage, or how do we make sure they get the best out of those investments, whoever's machine it is?
Yeah. Anybody else got any comments on that? We'll move on to the next question. What I didn't do, guys, because I was a bit stressed, obviously. I've never done this before. I didn't introduce everybody, including myself. I'm Carl from Plastic City, by the way. Okay, this is David Rain from Fanuc. Okay, obviously, this is Nigel from Sumitomo, DMAX Sumitomo. Dan Williams from Whitman Battenfeld. Okay, Colin Tyrrell from Arberg, and Wayne Ball from Engel. Okay, so a little bit behind the scene, but you know now who is. Okay, so the next question actually is, we're going to direct to you, Dan. Okay, to start with. You know, we're here today and it's all about, you know, Industry 4, it's all the topic at the moment. And we know that all you guys are talking about it and encouraging people to invest in this stuff, right? So let's just call it digitalisation, covering all the MES, AI, Industry 4, yeah? Okay? But it does seem to me, and a few people when you look at it, that, you know, is digitalisation only realistically available to your JLRs and your big companies in this world? When we're talking about Joe the Moulder, right, who's, you know, he's there, tray moulding, every margin, everything's tight, he's looking at every single cost. Investing in Industry 4, investing in this, is he really going to get a return? And does he actually really even understand what it is to then decide if he can make a return? What do you think?
Well, I think with the, like you say, Joe Boulder, 85% of our customer base are SMEs. I think from our point of view, from Whitman 4.0, we've been doing it for 10 years. And we've got a unique position really, because we manufacture the moulding machines, the robots, all the ancillary devices, and we do all the software behind those, so they are pretty seamless. But you can obviously use the 4.0 OPC UA, Unimap 77, and it's all about trying to educate people into how they can improve. The likes of a 4.0 cell from ourselves, the plug and produce, it will identify if you've saved the parameters on a mould, the machine, the robot, all the ancillaries, and for whatever reason the guy on the shop floor forgets to plug in a Tempro device, which can affect the production dramatically, it will flag this up at the earliest opportunity, and then they can then address that. The machine won't allow you to produce until all the criteria are met. The dryers, for instance, there might be a drying time of 2.5 hours for the material, and it won't let you actually go into a production until that's taken. But yeah, we're in a unique situation, but we can communicate, like you say, with the Euromap, OPC, UA.
Okay, so where do they really see the improvement in their bottom line, you could say? Because that's all anyone's really interested in, aren't they? Really?
Yeah,
well, it's SMEs, aren't
it's
they?
real-time information, isn't it? So
right.
Again, it's going to save you downtime. It's going to save you, production costs for materials that are going to have to be scrapped or reground or brought back into the process.
Yep.
So there is a cost saving there. And again, MES system, TEMI Plus, you can react to the situation straight away from any smart tablet or device or smartphone. And that can be, again, somebody who works lights out, for instance, can be at home and monitoring. There is definitely...
Yeah, I know there's case studies out there
Yeah.
which are saying this with the SMEs, isn't
Yeah,
it? But,
yeah.
I just think also still, I think it's still a bit of what is it really all about? What does it really mean? I still think it's a lot of people out there are still a bit unaware, really.
Yeah, I think people are
they've read
dipping their
loads about it, but
toes.
they're still a bit in the grey.
Yeah, definitely.
Completely agree. I think
It's all about education.
it's all.
I think
So,
so.
yeah. It's all about education, really, because Industry 4.0 covers a wide range of topics. Everything from logging into a customer portal, right the way through to having an edge device and allowing remote access for support. And those are the things at the beginning of the chain of Industry 4.0 that can save time, save downtime, save engineers' visits. We can even dial in and have a look at the process and optimize the process. So it doesn't have to mean that somebody has to go the whole hog in terms of Industry 4.0.
You can do it in
But
stages,
even to
isn't it?
get on the ladder with the first steps would be a good start.
Yeah, there is a lot of misconception, I think. Morning, Carl. There is a lot of misconception on Industry 4.0 and digitalisation, and I think slowly the customer base is accepting it. We're seeing, I think all the manufacturers are seeing this change. We're encouraging customers, and Dan's absolutely right what he's just said there, irrespective of the moulding machine itself, we're encouraging the customers to have more connectivity off the machine. So whether it's a simple mould temperature controller, it's very, very basic stuff, where we're either controlling it through the machine or the customer wants to know that if something goes wrong in there, and they are an SME, they're not a large medical moulder, because we're talking about a different structure there where they'll demand certain things because of the medical nature of what they do. But it is happening. We every year we do a visit to the factory, the annual technology days, and the customers that we took there this year, there were two very promising things. I've mentioned this on the stand a couple of times yesterday. One was that at least probably half of them were genuinely interested in digitalisation. And what I mean by genuinely, I mean that there is 40 odd machines running and there's a great deal of digitalisation, what have you. But to be frank, in previous years, everybody was very interested in the technologies, the processing and blah, blah, blah. You got to the point where you started talking about the digitalisation and you sensed that they were more interested in looking at the machinery and the options and so on and so forth. Now that's changing, that is definitely changing. We saw this 2 weeks ago. And the other part of it is, I think, as Wayne said, that there's a growing acceptance that we need to move our industry on. All of us have innovated our machines. We have, no doubt about that. But what happens when something goes wrong? What happens when you want to remotely access it? What happens when you're doing activities off the machine, around the machine? And that's where I think, whether you're an SME, and we're the same as Battenfeld, most of our customer SMEs, they were 30 years ago, they still are today. And those are the small little step changes they can make. They don't need to spend a lot of money, but the efficiencies can be improved. Plus all the things that Nigel said with training, absolutely key.
I think it's also, so I think it's also important that we identify the business case. So it's not just a case of rolling out technology for technology's sake. It's identifying what are we trying to fix and identify the business case so we know what the return on investment is going to be, and then we can work out whether the project was successful or not. Sometimes it reminds me a little bit of SPC. For those of us who are old enough, everybody was rolling out SPC but didn't really know what it was or how it worked. But we're doing SPC, so it must be good. So I think we need to be very clear at the outset what the digitalisation case is, what it's going to do for us in terms of whether it's improving quality, output, or reducing cost.
So you will look at, ROIs whenever you're presenting a justification for, or you will look at what they actually want to do, and you will do an ROI, and so they can look and say, it's worth me doing this or not.
It's the simplest thing in the world. Obviously, we're very, very happy when somebody invests in one of our machines, but it's the simplest thing in the world just to stay and have the status quo, and that's absolutely fine if the customer wants to do that. But I think collectively what we're trying to do is obviously just encourage or at least inform the customers what some of the things you can do without a massive layout of money, because we've all just said SMEs are a very important part of our business. And therefore, we're just trying to explain to a customer, okay, well look, if you did this, if they happen to have mentioned they had an issue in a particular area, then it makes sense to do it. It does, because it doesn't always mean a huge capital outlay.
How do you think we compare on, I know we talk about investment, are we lagging behind on the digitalisation with, you guys know other, you know, you're dealing with the other countries in terms of your peers as well.
Yeah.
Are we lagging behind with, say, France, Italy, Germany?
It seems to me that we are actually, and a lot of it comes down to confidence and security in the system. You know, for instance, if we're connecting to the machine remotely, you know, we very often have to give the IT department within companies the confidence that it's totally secure. And, you know, there's a big resistance to allowing suppliers in over a network. Of course, you can get around that with wireless solutions and all the other things that we can offer, but it is about education.
Right.
Yeah.
Back to the beginning again.
And I think, sorry, in terms of the rollout, yes, I think we are behind, but I think there's good reason sometimes. So if you look about automotive production or aerospace, it's very, very logical processes which you can digitize because you know exactly what you're doing when you're assembling something. For the injection molding process, it's quite a broad church. It's all sorts of cycle times, materials issues, so it's much more difficult to bring those digital tools and to play, and maybe we need things to think about things like machine learning and artificial intelligence to try and help
Well,
us
will
with
the customers then push that? Will they push that with the molders, like your automotive companies or your medical companies? Will they be the ones that drive the molders to do it?
I think they will, but I mean, I'd go back to the point you made earlier, Carl, and let's get a little bit contentious now. You know, you've got to look at the UK. You've got to look at the UK, and you've got to look at our GDP. And when you look at manufacturing, I've been in this industry for 40-something years, so yes, I am that old. But when you, and there's one or two of us that are exactly the same, I might hasten to add. But yeah, you've got to look at it in terms of what importance has been put on manufacturing in the last 45, 50 years. Come on, let's get real here, because everybody's sitting there, and you might as well say it.
We're coming from behind.
We work for a German company, Austrian, Japanese, whatever. All of those other countries value manufacturing, and I'm sorry, we just don't. We don't value manufacturing in this country, or we haven't done. We have a superb manufacturing base here, irrespective of, you know, whether it's plastics or other manufacturing. We do really well here. But our government and successive governments, very topical at the moment, do not support manufacturing. You know, I've worked for Darbo for 25 years. I've seen what the German government do for all companies in Germany. And there is currently a superb investment scheme to facilitate the ability to be able to invest in new, efficient injection molding machines. When was the last time you ever saw that happen in this country? All of us can remember the Carbon Trust.
Yeah.
How many years ago was that? Yeah, I know. Yeah? And where did that go? And I don't know if there's anybody out there that invested in it. And I remember sitting, and these guys would have done, in offices with customers saying, no, it really is interest-free. Because they were so cynical, they didn't believe it, because they'd had these, I know you swore then, they had these absolutely less than ideal government schemes. And they knew they had to fill in 56 pages of information. They may or may not get a loan at the end of it, and they might get £1,000. So they just, cynicism was just absolutely rife. We sat and we all benefited from that greatly. We sold a lot of machines on it, and it was superb, and then it was taken away. And they talk about a level playing field. And by the way, I voted to stay, I don't mind saying.
Right, guys, great. We need to move on, so thanks for that. No, of course you can, yeah. Go.
So just on that point,
yourself in.
yeah, Ian Ray from Jaguar Land Rover. So my question to you guys then is flipping it on the head. Given the difficult economic climate at the moment, if OEMs were to turn around and specify of their moulders that they require 4.0 practices, do you think that would that break the UK SMEs, or would that drive them to do it?
Good question.
It's a good, yeah.
Sorry, because you're facilitating, that's what I'm pointing at you.
It's a really, really good question. I think in terms of the conversations that we've had, I think you have to look at, from an SME point of view, it's always about return on investment. And in terms of the compatibility of equipment, it's great. All of us here have got systems which can dial into machinery, can really interrogate what's going on all kinds of equipment. But how many single molding machine shops are there out there? You don't have that luxury. That's where I think from the industry's point of view, the Euromap standards are what's going to drive this, because what you want is the same facility as you've got with your printer and your laptop. You switch it on, you press a button, it says it's found a printer, it downloads the driver, your printer's ready to go in 30 seconds. You want that compatibility. You've then got the conversation that, as Wayne said, in medical moulding, aerospace moulding, you've got firewalls to get through if you want to access all this stuff. SMEs are not normally worried too much about that, so you have the ability to get in there and do stuff. But what you're really looking for is, in terms of the productivity and developing that productivity, is you go for the big wins quickly, and the big wins can be just a small investment. And that small investment will allow you to use a data-driven approach as opposed to a perception. So I guess the answer to your question is, we can get that compatibility, we can get that Industry 4 technology out there, but it's kind of it covers everything. It's an education thing. How many of the SMEs know that digitization and digital approach is available to them? The perception is it's only for the aerospace guys, it's only for the medical molders. It's not. It's available to anyone. And it's available in varying stages. Yeah, if you want to go full-blown medical validation and traceability, then literally everything is feeding back through the machine and logging and tagging everything. But at the other end of the scale, you might have a guy who's got 10 moulding machines, a person's got 10 moulding machines. What's worse? Something that stops 30 times every shift, but that's just how it runs, or something that goes down for an hour. You don't know until you've got that data whether or not you've got a problem. So it's about drilling through the perceptions and getting to the data level, and then getting that information to increase your productivity without spending a lot of money. Because the SMEs, as the guys have said, 80% of the market, it's absolutely key to the industry. But monitoring and Industry 4 is down here in terms of investment, because what they're really looking for is, I need a new mold temperature controller, I need a new moulding machine, I need a new robot. So the industry needs to be educated to use that to drive targeted investment and training. Because at the end of the day, the more technology we put in, the more training you have to give the individuals to support that technology to get the very best out of it.
I think there's one of the other barriers is just simply the age of the machine park.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of machines which are, the average machine age is probably 10 plus years. So the control systems won't necessarily support integration of OPC and new technologies. So we have to find solutions which
that comes on to the next question.
Oh, sorry, beg your
No, it's
pardon.
all right. Only because we need to move through because of time if you don't.
Yeah.
And I've got some good questions after. But one of them was about the cross-brand and age
Yeah.
compatibility, because we started off by saying all the machines are old. People aren't replacing them fast enough. Well, that must be then a challenge for you guys installing digitalisation systems, because they are all different vintages, different brands.
Yeah,
So-
that doesn't actually stop you connecting the machines to a system of some
Right.
sort.
Okay.
It's all about the data you're looking for from the older machines. You know, from Engel's point of view, through an edge device, you know, we have full accessibility. We can dial into the machine. We can interrogate the process, and that
Can
be
you do that
connected
with
the
a Backenfelter or an Arberg?
Our TIG system, that can be done.
Yeah.
So our MES system, that can be done.
Yeah, the MES system works on a timer, doesn't it? But in terms of the process, in terms of the wear of components, I guess
No.
that's not something
No.
we can do yet, is it?
No.
And they probably won't let you either.
No.
The other thing is, in terms of that kind of investment, you've also got to look at the figures that Nigel was quoting. So even if someone launches a full-blown MES system, a full-blown machine traceability and maintenance system, you're going to be looking at 22, 24, 26-year-old machines. There is no way that technology can support the information that's needed out of it. So even starting from scratch now, you're looking at a very, very small sector of the industry that we can get this information from. But Wayne's absolutely right. Do you need to go to that level? Do you need to go into that detail? What you can start to look at is the basic data, and you can get that basic data from almost any MES system, whether it's a branded system, whether it's a third-party system. It's about using the technology to get the information that you really need right now, and using that cross-compatibility that as it comes and when it comes through Euromap, we get more and more data available to do something meaningful with. But you got to guard against collecting data for data's sake. If you're going to collect the data, do something with it. Do something meaningful with it. Don't just create massive spreadsheets that after 6 weeks just get, oh, do you know what? Just put that to one side, go out on the shop floor. So it's about targeted data.
I'm going to have to jump in though, guys. But next one, if you don't mind. Sorry to be. Smart machines, Wayne. Right? This is what I was interested in because, you know, we assume the ultimate smart machine will run at 100% quality, faster cycle, lowest energy consumption. We'll be able to know when to replace the worn screw or when the motor's about to pack in. Yeah? It'll also be able to send an AGV to get a mould, preheat it before he puts it in, and do all that. And the MES system will manage all this. How far are we from actually, you know, being able to do that? And realistically, if I gave you 10 million quid and said, can you do it? Could you do it?
With 10 million quid, you can do it.
Right,
But
so it's possible.
But based on the investment figures that have just been quoted, that's a different subject.
Right.
But I think I need to split that into two parts, if I may. Let's go to the end first. Fully lights out production. Sometimes when you're looking at the future, you have to look at the past. And I remember in the 90s, I worked for a company where they implemented an automatic moulding plant to a certain level because the technology wouldn't allow them to go as far as you've just mentioned. But there were some elements of that which we can see in today's production facilities. But if we then take a step back to the beginning of the chain, the fundamental basis of anything else we want to do is a reliable, stable moulding machine that can predict time to failure on certain components like the ball screw on electric machines, monitor the oil quality, measure whether your screw is wearing or not. You know, we've entered into a program with a company in the UK where we can now measure screw wear externally. Ultimately, I think that technology is going to be embedded in the machine. So the basis of everything is going to be, have I got a machine that is running within specification? From there, you want to then look at, if we're talking about full automated plant, you need a machine that can change parameters to be within an acceptable limit. You know, IQ clamp control, IQ weight control, where we're looking at variation in material MFI, and we're compensating for that. So that when you know that mold goes into the press, it's going to very quickly reach its acceptable quality level and go. We can RFID code molds so that we know when that mold goes in, those are the parameter sets that need to be loaded. We already have automatic mold changing tables, which can be fully integrated into systems. We then start to think about Euromap 77 and how we can integrate material feed systems and water temperature controllers and all the other ancillaries that go into that cell. So all these building blocks ultimately could lead us to a point.
So they're all there.
They're all there in terms of.
But they can be connected.
They can be connected.
Right.
We can connect to the machine from a maintenance point of view, so we can predict time to failure on components. The machines can be connected to an MES system, so we can look at production monitoring and we can do planning and all that, all those facilities. The step that is probably going to be, you know, the most in terms of investment is, you know, you need a new site. You're going to have these, you know, carriages that will go and collect the mold and get it to the machine and load it to the
The
table.
same machines.
Yeah, and we were talking earlier about the fact that we've got a shortage of skills in our industry, and what we have to think about is what that lights out facility will do in terms of skills. But ultimately, you still need people to do the design of experimental tools. Yeah, and you know, so I would say, as Engel, we're looking at the building blocks in Industry 4.0, which ultimately in the future may allow you to go fully lights out.
Yeah.
But I think we're quite a long way away.
But I suppose if you look at some of the engineering, like the Mazak systems, they actually will change. They'll know if it's wearing.
Yeah.
They'll go in, they'll change it. So your screw's wearing. They'll go in, they can probably rotate the barrel, take the screw out, put a new one in, and then send it off. So I would imagine it's all available, but is it viable?
When you think about the connection rate of our equipment for remote support, in terms of getting to lights out production,
Maybe one step at a time.
yeah.
One step at a time.
One step at a time, yeah. Okay, great. The last one is talking about, could be controversial, this one. It's kind of 3D printing. Is it a threat to injection molding? You know, I've worked quite a bit now with HP. I know that their multi-jet fusion, they're talking about can manufacture 10,000 parts, you know, which is kind of encroaching on low to medium volume production, okay? So, Colin, you've got the freeformer. You're the only one at the group here that has a 3D printer, AM, what do you want to call it?
Yep.
In your portfolio.
Yep.
Firstly, what's your view on whether it's going to be complementary or realistically is it a threat? And then secondly, do you other guys have any plans to introduce 3D printing machines to maybe bridge those gaps? So, sorry guys.
Yeah, you didn't tell us about the second question. But no, first and foremost, I think we can all relax where we're coming from with the freeformer. No. Will it ever replace injection molding machines? No, it's not going to do that. And if you think about it logically, you know, we didn't develop the freeformer to replace our own machines. It's very much a complementary technology. Where we aimed it, we introduced in 2013 at the K Show, 3 USPs. Number one, an open system, which if any of you use additive manufacturing equipment, you'll know that's quite unique. So it means that once technicians mastered it and they need to learn, they can produce some fantastic results based on what they need, what they see, just like a molding machine. Second point was that we wanted to produce a machine technology that would give you fully functional parts. So I've got a couple here. I know, sorry, you can't see them greatly at the back, but that's yeah. No, this one would hurt. So this is a TP. Very quickly, we can manipulate the density. So what I'm looking at here is like a filter, 100% density on the outside, a ring, 50% density on the inside. So think of a Rubik's Cube. Each one of those cubes can be a different density, manufactured in one-step approach. Fantastic. And this is where we're going, high-temp materials. So this is old-temp, exactly the same old-temp as you would put through any of our machines, okay? This is the part that come out of the freeformer in a number of hours. It's a cranial implant, so we're thinking there about a medical approach, which medical has certainly given us a lot of interest, a lot of sales. And we're producing a one-off, because obviously this is about producing very small volumes, if not one-offs, to an STL file that a customer gives to us. We can then produce it in a range of materials, okay? We can now get it, because the next question would be, well, okay...
My worry is I can see a microchip in there, so
yeah,
where are we going with this?
No, I was going to explain that one. So this component here, and I'm flashing it around, sorry, the two components here. The other question we get asked quite a bit is structural integrity of the components themselves. How does it compare with injection molding machine component? Well, in certain materials, we can get to 99% in certain axes without a mold. Pretty impressive. This one is actually the finished item, because the other question we have is, can we get a surface finish that's equivalent of or better than an injection mold component? So the answer there is yes, we can do post-operate, and this is quite a very, very new component, which is, as I say, an old-term. It's produced, it's then post-processed, which isn't what we always do, because we don't need to. It's also got a QR code on the back, so effectively this could be implanted in somebody's skull, because it is the real material. It's not a synthesized material. So that's where we see our advantages. Longer term, yep, for sure, the companies that are looking at it, by and large, they are molders. Sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're universities for research, or maybe for small batch production. You know, we're all very familiar with fast R&D, want it quick, want to change it. Yes, that's nice, but I want this, I want that, let's change it again. So that's where we see it. We do not see it as an injection molding machine killer. It's going to be an added to.
Anybody else want to chip in? Any 3D manufacturers out there? No? Oh, somebody wanted to say so? Oh. Yeah, fine. I don't need the subject to find out.
Okay, the panel's discussed about investment in equipment, but we're talking about investment in people. I mean, we deal with mergers and acquisitions globally in the polymer industry. We're having to go in and restructure, and then at the same time we offer recruitment as well. The challenge that we have is that trying to get hold of people in our industry is very challenging. What we noticed in mainland Europe and North America, they're quite willing to pay the wages. I mean, the wages have increased by 20%. Over here, we seem to be very constrained. We don't seem to invest in our people. The other thing that we've done is that we've ended up taking people on that are time travellers that have retired and coming back into the industry. What are you guys? What are your views on the increase in salaries and bringing people that are retired, bringing them in part time?
Can I? Yeah.
Thanks, Brian.
I think, thanks for the question. I think first and foremost, and we touched on it briefly before, but I think it's an interesting point where Nigel started. Yes, salary is obviously a critical point of everybody. Do you work to live or live to work? But I think it's more fundamental than that. I mean, for the last 5 years, we've taken on 4 apprentices. We'll take on 1 this year. And the point you make when you said it's hard to find people, I can't find the words that actually could describe it. Not 1 week goes by that I don't speak to somebody, customer or whatever, and they're saying to me they can't find the quality manager, can't find this. It's absolutely critical. And everybody's got to start taking more apprentices on. We know apprenticeships were stopped. They should never have been stopped. We should have always carried on taking apprentices. But like I said before, my own opinion, for what it's worth, is that the UK needs to wake up. It needs to get manufacturing more in the focus, because it is, as Nigel said, look how many people it employs. And yet we go to so many companies, it's only just beginning to happen when you talk to companies and they're taking apprentices on. So I would say it's more fundamental. Salaries, yes, but let's get more people in the industry, because we are, look at us, I mean, we're not exactly 20, are we? We don't look like a boy band. And we've got to get people in, and they've got to be younger people. And it goes back all the way to schools. And, we don't want to get on our soapbox here. Yeah. But the way that manufacturing is perceived in schools, still to this day, is wrong. It's wrong, and it's got to change.
If I can just sort of pick up on that. So under the BPF's Education and Skills Committee, we're looking for career ambassadors, for people that are in our industry that are happy to spend some time going to schools, talk to people who are making decisions at 16, 17 years old about what the future looks like. I think my experience of doing that is that a lot of the view on what UK manufacturing and production looks like was formed when teachers were at university 20 years ago. So they see what we do on a daily basis back in 20 years before. So it'd be really good, and a BPF, they've got a pavilion here, is, if you think you're interested, please reach out. It's because if we don't do something, we only have ourselves to blame.
Yeah.
So I definitely encourage people to try and get involved in that programme.
Okay, thanks guys. Well, maybe that's the reason.
Carl,
Yeah.
sorry, but there's one additional thing that I think we need to take into account here. Nigel's absolutely right, Colin's spot on. All of us here can remember the apprenticeship programme, and apprentices are the lifeblood of the industry, but I think there are 2 problems that we've got to address as an industry. The first thing is the manufacturing and investing in manufacturing, and the second thing, which is really important right now, is that plastics has got a really, really bad rep out in the marketplace, and more importantly with children.
Yep.
And if we don't educate the kids of today that plastics has a place in the future, then that's just going to permeate. No one has made any comment about single-use plastics for COVID boosters or jabs. They're all single-use, they're all incinerated, everything is trashed. But that just kind of went under the radar, while the plastic bag story and the killing baby turtles and all this kind of stuff, that is high profile. We as an industry have a duty to educate kids right now that plastics is not just important, it's essential. It's not going to go away, it's going to evolve and it's going to develop, but we've got to get the message out that it is something that's worth investing in.
That's right. Maybe the kids are worried about, I was just looking at us lot thinking, maybe the kids don't want to come in because they look at us lot and think, just Parliament do something to your hair, I don't know.
I think, picking up on what the guys have said, I think succession planning for us as organisations is a big problem. Yep. We've also embarked on an apprenticeship intake scheme. We took 2 last year, we're looking for 2 more this year.
Everyone should be doing this, right?
But we've also identified that in certain areas of the business, we're not getting any younger, and we need to see young talent coming into the business to replace us. Yeah. So we've been on a drive to find those people as well.
Okay. Well, brilliant. I think that's our time. I think we're encroaching on. Is there any other questions before we... Glenn, I know I don't have to go down there. Right. I did, yes. I don't know why. Maybe I regret it now.
Just a very quick one. Obviously, the industry is facing massive energy increases on electricity, most moulders are seeing double or treble prices on electricity. Talking about investment, it's obviously going to restrict the amount that a moulder can invest, but also what are you guys doing to obviously bring down some of the energy costs on the machines?
I think right across the board,
Perfect.
that's a
Thank you.
continuous improvement process. So I think we're all looking at electric technology, whether it's servo drives to drive hydraulic systems or electric machines, all of which will deliver benefits. But it's also about peripheral equipment as well. So it's making sure that we're right across our manufacturing park, we're working to reduce the energy costs. And it has come once again into sharp focus again recently. You know, it was a few years ago when energy costs bounced up, then there've been a period of stability, and now we're seeing massive rises again. So it's front and centre. But it still comes back again to training. It's making sure that we don't just optimise a machine now for output, for quality, but also for energy. So we have to look at where we're consuming it, what can we do to reduce that consumption. And it's those incremental aggregation of marginal gains, I think, is the popular approach.
What about also the parent companies looking at the price of electric machines? Is there any reason why they can't get that down closer to the price of hydraulic machines or servo?
I think
we need to sell more, bring the price
Sell
down.
more because it's a volume economy. That's what I was thinking. If
We'd
you
like
sell
to.
more electric machines,
like
that'll
to.
bring their prices down.
Yeah.
So
I think there's always, I mean, and Dave, don't take this the wrong way, but I mean, there's always going to be room. All of us, obviously, we manufacture servo hydraulic machines, we manufacture electric machines. And Glenn, you're absolutely right. I mean, obviously, none of us can hide from that in terms of the energy costs. We're all seeing it, everybody's experiencing it, whether you're in the house or whether you're in the factory. And that also goes back to the hour we just spent talking about what we can do and how the industry is and some of our views. And if customers are running oldish machines, we understand why, but you've got to understand then if you look at a 22-year-old machine, it's the old classic thing about, well, I'm going to invest in a new machine, and of course it's going to be more energy efficient. And I think in fairness, none of us are selling a pure hydraulic machine now, but that's taken a while from the global market to get there. So now we've got the servo hydraulic machine that's pretty much the standard, the norm. The electric machines, doubtless they're growing, no doubt about that. We've all seen it globally when we look at our figures, and I'm sure these guys are exactly the same. And of course, Dave on the end there would totally agree. So they will grow, but how much more can we innovate them? Are we innovating? Yeah, we are, and they are as well. We all are, because it's a competitive market, and we all want to be number one. So it will continue, but will it continue quick enough to address what's happening right now? I go back to what Nigel said. All you can do is make sure the machine is optimized correctly, you're running it correctly, you know, all the things that we don't need to go into because we haven't got time now.
The details visible.
Correct.
In the system.
Yeah, absolutely right.
So we know
absolutely
exactly
right.
what it's consuming.
Yeah. So I think we've innovated machines a hell of a lot, all of us. If you look back, you know, God knows how many years ago it was that microprocessors came, which was the big quantum leap, electric machines and so on. What's the next leap? We'll see, but it ain't going to be quick enough this week, is it? Or next month.
But somebody made a real good point, because it's not just about the moulding machine. You know, if you connect TCUs to the machine and they've not got servo-driven pumps, and they're running at full chat all the time, that's affecting the overall consumption of the cell.
yeah, sure.
So it isn't just the moulding machine.
So
it's
the
everything.
ancillary items,
It's
the
everything.
power
that's
consumption
connected.
of them, you see some very efficient ones now, don't you?
Yeah.
Efficient dryers and everything, don't you?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, I think that's it, guys, unless there's anybody else wanted to make a comment. No, well, thank you. Thank you for your openness. Thanks for your time.
No problem.
It's been really good.
No problem.
Thanks, guys, and thank you for the audience. Thank you.